Our first remarks this evening will be coming from Assistant Principal Michael Ice. Mr. Ice, thank you, and thank you, Lincoln, for hosting us this evening.
Thank you so much, Board. We greatly appreciate you being here in our school. We're Lincoln Performing Arts, the first performing arts elementary school in the state of Kentucky, where LPAS commits to educating the whole child through rigorous arts-infused curriculum to better prepare students for future success. But we are beyond grateful to host our wonderful board, including our board chair, Miss Diane Porter. Thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Polio, and the whole team. We hope that you have a wonderful experience. You happen to be in Arendelle right now when we just finished Frozen Junior. So if you would like some more Frozen-esque things, our students have done some great student artwork that's on both levels, and we encourage you to look at that as you're going through the community today. So thank you.
Thank you. My remarks are very simple. Thank you for being here tonight. The whole purpose of us doing things like this is to bring our community in, the importance of having community voice, for a community to hear what the district is doing. So thank you for those that are here this evening. Tell your friends what they missed, that this is a great event. So thank you very much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Polio so we can get the community forum part started. But before that, Dr. Polio.
Thank you, Chair Porter and board members, and thank you, Mike Ice. We appreciate being here at Lincoln. It's always a great place to be, and anytime you walk in the school, you feel the positive energy from the students. Also, Lincoln Elementary, home of Eli Cobb. So is one of the great students here at the school. So we're excited to have you here today. This is the third time that we have done a community forum, and we've changed it around each and every time. And trying to get as much interaction as possible with community members, our staff, and then board members as well. So our first, once we break from here, there are several options to give feedback that you can provide feedback on. We have 4 different sessions that we will be having that we will have staff directing you to, and those include feedback that we are looking for from you on student assignment, our school safety plan, our new facilities at our 4 new schools that we are planning, and then as we are rolling out the beginning of our strategic plan. And so those are 4 separate areas. We will have a brief presentation in each session, about 5 minutes, from JCPS staff to give you as quickly as possible where we are now in each and every one of these, and then have the opportunity to get your feedback. We'll have computers set up to capture your thoughts and other ways to get your feedback, but clearly we want to hear these. So you are welcome to stay in one for multiple times, or you are welcome to move through all 4 over the next hour and a half. At this particular session, our board members have the opportunity to move through there as well to get your feedback on any of those 4 issues that we are working on that you would like to give our board members. And then finally, as always, we have JCPS staff and teams and other community partners set up in the hallway that you can ask questions, get information as you walk around to the different sessions. We will come back here approximately 7:30 for our business portion of the meeting, and we will adjourn that, or we'll start that about 7:40 if you would like to join us for the business portion of our meeting. Once again, we appreciate you being here, and no community feedback is very important. Any other words, Ms. Porter? At that time, thank you. We will now adjourn to the various sessions that will begin in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
So what we're going to do is, prior to the information fair, I was supposed to ask us to recess so we could do that. So we've already done it, but we're going to go back and act like we haven't done it. So that for the record, I can say that we will recess to attend the information fair. And during that time, there was no board business conducted as folks were going around and talking to folks. So what I need to have from the board is a motion that we did recess for the information fair. So motion, Board Member Marshall, seconded by Board Member Craig. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And so I will go back and say that we were out rotating around for the breakout session. So thank you everyone for that. Now we're coming back together at this time to reconvene. The recess is now ended. And do I have to vote to recess? Okay, I can just keep it moving. Okay, great. I'm trying to follow all the rules or else they'll fuss at me. We are coming back together. There was no business conducted during the information fair. Tonight we have people to address the board, and there are some couple of things that I'm going to say, and Angie is going to put something up on the board that talks a little bit about our speakers. In the past, there's this long narrative that we read, and we're not doing that tonight, trying to make things a little bit simpler, but there's some things that I have to highlight as we go forward with the public speakers. First of all, each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the board and may not share the minutes with anyone else. At the end of 2.5 minutes, a bell will sound once, and then you'll have 30 seconds to finish your statement. At the end of 3 minutes, the bell will sound twice, indicating that your time is up, and the superintendent will look into issues and, if necessary, represent the board in following up our recommend action to the board. But there were a couple of things that I wanted to point out. We are happy to be here at Lincoln, and these are things that we always do at the Van Hoos Center. First of all, speakers are not allowed to use props, displays, or any other objects during their presentations. If you have information items, I would ask that you give it to Angie Gilpin, and she will see to it that it's given to us. Anyone that's within the audience, you can have signs, but they can be no larger than 8.5 by 11, which is the normal size of a regular piece of paper. Signs may not be attached to any sort of stick and must be displayed in a manner that does not inhibit others around you from viewing what's going on at the board meeting. And I think that takes care of the main parts of what we need to go over tonight. So at this point, we're going to start with our speakers and our first speaker this evening. And we will start with the speakers who were talking about something that's our agenda item. So our first speaker tonight is Metro Councilman Anthony Piaggittini. Okay, how about Metro Councilman Anthony? Yeah, okay, thank you, Metro Councilman Anthony, for being here this evening. Welcome.
Thank you very much, board members. I am Anthony Piaggittini. I represent the 19th District of Louisville Metro, which is the East End, sort of Middletown, Eastwood, Douglas Hills area of the city, in which this proposed school will be on the border of. And I want to put in perspective comments that I've heard from across my district related to this school. First, I'd like to begin by saying we do need more dialogue with our local elected leaders, intergovernmental, but amongst our taxpayers. So I appreciate everything you're doing and giving the public an opportunity to engage. For example, I've brought up to Board Member Craig the desire to follow up on our audits and other topics to see more and more bold improvement by our public school system to support and help the growth of the Jefferson County community. I do believe this school, or this proposed vote, is one step of many for this school. There are a few issues that need to be addressed. Metro needs to address local roads like Echo Trail, and I've been working with some that you'll hear later today from the Eastwood Village Council, like Bob Frederico, in advocating for additional money. The state needs to come through with additional money for road development on Shelbyville Road at the intersection of Shelbyville Road and Eastwood Cutoff, which is a dangerous intersection in my district. And I would advocate for all those here tonight to advocate with your elected officials in Frankfurt to pass the updated road budget allocation bill and to pass the draft road bill, which has the opportunity to bring millions of more dollars of infrastructure and road development to our community, which could help solve one of the key problems that this school will have under the current infrastructure conditions. I also think we do need to be environmentally conscious. This is a sensitive environmental area, and we need to build with that in mind. And we must and continue to engage with the public so that we as public officials are accountable. With that said, I and many of my constituents in the area fully support the development of this school. This district and this area is the growth engine of Jefferson County, and we need more schools to support that growth. The Parklands Board has come out in support of this. The Parklands created that area to create a community around it, to engage with that area, to engage with the environment, which I believe this school can do. I would urge all of the board members here to vote in favor of this new school. It is desperately needed for the community and is one step in many, as I see, of some bold moves that you're making to try to improve public education in this community. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Jeff Frank, representing the Friends of Floyd's Fork. Mr. Frank, thank you for being here.
Good evening, Director Polio, Madam Chair, board members. My name's Jeff Frank, 16509 Bradby Road, Fisherville, Kentucky, and I'm a longtime member of that community and been instrumental, I think it's fair to say, in creating that web of property that is the Parklands. There are a number of concerns before you, and I wanted to address first our letter that you should have before you dated March 10th from Strobo Barkley that outlines, we believe, a series of deficiencies in your submittal as proposed to be submitted to the state with regard to the Board of Education and the approval there. The timing of it comes late, and I offer an acknowledgement of that, but also want to say that multiple open records requests in January and February to try to get at the heart of these questions were not answered by JCPS, and it was only when the board materials became available in the last week that we were able to take the dive that you have before you. High level, we are asking tonight for you to table this decision for as long as it takes for staff to identify the deficiencies identified in this letter. And later this evening, one of the members of Strobo Barkley will kind of fill in the blanks on our letter request that is before you. If you choose to move forward with this infrastructure, it will be the first time in 27 years the Floyd's Fork DRO has had an intensive development, more than one house per 5 acre placed on it, since that land was downzoned. You will wittingly or unwittingly be party to a sewer expansion that will be oversized and facilitate not just your school or this one development that you are part of, whether you want to be or not, and that development's currently being challenged in court. And we're a bit incredulous that we are running as fast as we are towards putting this site on the ground. There will be many impacts, the greatest of which will be the precedents that's set with the infrastructure that's going to be placed as a result of this. You have inspired design. My kid's a JCPS graduate, gun second prize in the world. I'm a big JCPS fan. You know, I think we can get together, and I've appealed to Commissioner Brady. I would have if I could have caught Commissioner Craig, Madam Chair, for you to take a pause, fill in these blanks, and engage in a dialogue with FANA, the Friends, and so forth. You've seen the traffic studies we've prepared. They show gridlock without the infrastructure Mr. Piagentini speaks to. The monies are not in the budget. I've spoken to Jeff O'Brien at Planning and Design. You'll have a school on the ground unchecked before you have the road improvements to provide for public safety. I think a 25-minute AM response time delay is unconscionable, and that's what the developers' traffic studies say. So please take a pause, reach out to us, engage in dialogue, table this decision, and I thank you for your consideration and look forward to being available to work with you.
Thank you, Mr. Frank, for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Steve Henry. Mr. Steve Henry, welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Steve Henry, and I live in the Highlands. Let me just, first of all, acknowledge Ms. Wallace. That's one of the reasons I'm in med school here at the University of Louisville, and we love you, by the way. When I became a physician, I did trauma at University Hospital. And so I'm acutely aware of bus crashes, took care of the Carrollton bus crash. And so it's one of those things that safety is acutely important to me. But why am I here? In 1993, I started what's called the Future Fund. I went to David Jones and Mary Bingham, and in 93, we started land banking. And contrary to that, I was a founding member of the Parklands. And the Parklands has not taken a position on this. I'm on the board. We had our last meeting last week. I told them what I was going to say tonight. Although Dan Jones has taken a personal position, he does not oppose development of any type. So he has had a conversation, I think, with the superintendent, as he told me. And so the Parklands has not taken a position on this entity. Let me say I'm very concerned about this. If you come up the hillside from this position, and let me say this, I cannot believe that any one of you all, including the superintendent, went and picked out this site. This is one of the worst sites in Jefferson County for a school. At one end, you've got a 25-minute drag from Shelbyville Road to try to get to the school. You go out the other end, and you run into a hillside, and I counted 92 semis at the top of that hill that you're going to have to negotiate that. And on top of that, you have a train to go beyond there. I don't understand the position. Obviously, this is in the DRO. This is one of the most environmentally sensitive areas on Floyd's Fork. Here we have spent over $100 million creating one of the national models of how to put a park system in an urban area that brings a number of companies to this community because of the opportunities that it gives us. I just want you all to ask these questions. Why this piece of property? Why did the Fisherville Baptist Church, in a better position, higher ground than you all, basically said, I think 2 weeks ago, that they were not interested at $55,000 an acre? 3 years ago, this land appraised at $3,000 an acre. $8,000 an acre. When we became involved with the Long Run organization, we bought their land on Taylorsville Lake Road to protect the DRO. That would be an excellent place for you to move a school. It's flat. It's basically free of any types of construction or obstruction, rather, on the roads. And there are better places that I would ask that you all put this off and look at it. When we decided this, Mayor Abramson, Mayor Armstrong, Darrell Owens, Irv Mays, all of us spent years studying this before we implemented this, and we've all agreed the DRO is the only thing that can save Floyd's Fork. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry, for being here. Our next speaker is Don Pickenpaul. Welcome, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me. As you said, my name is Don Pickenpaul, and I live in Fisherville. 92 feet. That's how far your property is from that creek, and it's a straight 40 feet down from there. I do not see how you can ever stop the actual physical pollution or the noise pollution from going 92 feet. How do you do that? This city has spent people around the city have built $100 million park. And obviously Floyd's Fork is in the center of that park, 19 miles. Most cities, and I'm an airline pilot, and I travel most of these cities, they don't have anything like what you have here in this city. You got to ask yourself, why do you want to be so close? Why do you want to be in an environmentally sensitive area and that close to it? Ask yourself this: Superintendent of the New York City Schools, Richard Carenza, do you think he would ask the city of New York to put a middle school in Central Park? Why do you want to do that and put that in the middle of our parklands and that close? 92 feet. That's what it comes down to. I was out there, I measured it twice today. I am a part of the Fisherville Baptist. We did look at the property right beside it. It's actually connected to you. 2605 Echo Trail, same address. Our appraisal came in at $17,400 per acre was what the appraisal was. They were asking $55,000 for it. We obviously could not do that. In addition, we had an incredible amount of rock that was within 4 feet of the surface there that actually doubled our site prep cost. And it actually doubled everything we had. We weren't even considered being able to put our church there. And we were also going to have to battle the same thing you are, is seeking a conditional use permit in the DRO. And I'm glad we decided not to take that route. I thank you for letting me speak here today. And I just ask you to please reconsider this. As Steve Henry said, there are so many other better places. Our church even looked at them. The place in Route Road is a lot better facility and can handle a lot better traffic and everything you want to do. The traffic is very dangerous on both ends here. Like you said, you've got a train that's coming around a blind corner. It will never be able to stop for a school bus. There is no way. I hope you don't lose any kids here, but you were warned. And on the other end, that's even the safer exit. The Shelbyville exit is a 45-degree entrance to get into the center lane when you got cars coming around a blind curve at 55 miles an hour plus. So I ask that you consider that too. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Bob Frederico. He's chairman of the Eastwood Village Council. Mr. Frederico, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, board members. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here. I am Bob Federico. I am the chairman of the Eastwood Village Council. We're an advocacy group for everything in the Eastwood and surrounding area. We are not anti-development. We do believe that we need schools in the East End. We do, however, believe that things need to be done, planned, and executed with some vision and forethought and consideration of safety. You've heard about protecting the wetlands and the DRO and the tree canopies. I want to focus, you all have a handout here. I'd like to focus on that. Our biggest concern is the intersection that you've all heard about. And I've got a lot of verbiage here to talk about, but to net it out, we've got a lot of traffic studies have been done. You've got the cover sheet for one of them that was done for the Echo Trail subdivision. And you look at it and you will see that the Eastwood cutoff rating for an intersection rated A through F, it's an F. It's an F today. The pre-build in 2030 before the school or the Echo Trail subdivision is an F. After build is an F with a projection of 1,480 seconds, or basically over 20-minute delay. That's the queue time for one car to make a left or right-hand turn at that intersection. If you look at that and you consider the lack of shoulders, turn lanes, third lane, signalization, lines of sight, and fundamentally bad geometry, it makes this one of the most dangerous intersections in the city. If you look at the map that I've provided for you, I think the map really says it all. Gilliland Lane is your southern approach. Gilliland Lane is the only path that you would have from this school onto Shelbyville. All the new subdivisions that are going in right now north of Shelbyville Road in the east end of town funnel through this intersection. The geography of that intersection is obvious to anyone how dangerous it is. A car wanting to make a left-hand turn onto Shelbyville to Middletown is basically facing about 70 degrees in that direction when cars are coming from that direction. The ability of making a left-hand turn, virtually impossible for a car. I need you to focus on that map and think about how you're going to get your school buses through that intersection, making a left, making a right, in the morning, in the afternoon. Think about the young drivers who are bringing their children to the school, going through that intersection. When I explained this to the Planning Commission at the Echo Trail subdivision original planning meeting, they did not approve the Echo Trail subdivision the first time through until more studies were done to look into this intersection. Now, working with Anthony Piagentini and Jerry Miller and a number of other folks, there are plans that can be put in place to restructure that intersection, buy the right-of-ways, buy some property, put some signalization. Mind you, if you look at the map, just left of this intersection is the Eastwood Fire Department. I was on the Eastwood Fire Board. We have a firehouse that has no ingress and egress signalization. This is insanity, guys. It's just not right. So at some point, we really need to get serious about this. We are asking for your help to drive the funds through the process to restructure this intersection, put in turn lanes, put in lights, make it safe for the people who live there today, make it safe for your children in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Steve Porter. Steve Porter, welcome, Mr. Porter.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. My name is Steve Porter. I'm a proud graduate of the JCPS system from kindergarten through 12th grade. My wife and I have 4 children, all went through JCPS, 8 grandchildren, all of whom are either although one's now off in the Army, but the others are all at JCPS schools. I'm a strong supporter of this school system. Back in the first year of desegregated busing, my son was in the 1st grade and was bused from the St. Matthews area to Coleridge Taylor, and I was a backup monitor. during those days when there was a lot of predicted problems. Fortunately, I was never even called on because the problems didn't turn out to be as bad. In the 1990s, as an attorney, I had the great honor to represent Lyman Johnson, Georgia Powers, and others to defeat the possible return to a segregated neighborhood school system. And that's why I come here tonight. You've heard about the DRO and the creek and those things, and those are problems. But my concern is that this location is catering to all white suburbia and its developers. It is an extremely difficult area for minorities and their parents to get to. There's no TARC service, there are bad roads. It is your responsibility to keep a desegregated system. This school will be one of your most difficult ones if you locate it at this location. And I think that that is something that you need to keep in mind because I fully support and want this system to remain desegregated. We are known nationally as probably the most desegregated school system in the country of large school systems, and we need to maintain that position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter, for being here this evening. Our next speaker is David Spinard. Mr. Spinard, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. David Spinard, 730 Browns Lane, Louisville, Kentucky. The board should not take action on the recommended motion because there is not adequate documentation of the proposal. The Kentucky Board of Education has an administrative regulation that applies to this acquisition. The Kentucky Department of Education has communicated to JCPS specific instructions regarding this acquisition. The property at 2605 Echo Trail does not currently have water or sewer service facilities. The project requires the extension of that infrastructure. Under the proposed contract, JCPS would pay $2.1 million for acquiring the site. Additionally, that $2.1 million includes some of the costs associated with the sanitary sewer line. Under the proposed contract, JCPS would be responsible for water infrastructure, including a looped water line service, and a portion of that water line will be on property that will not be owned by JCPS and will be benefiting property not owned by JCPS. And the cost of that infrastructure is not disclosed in these documents. JCPS has yet to provide a complete quantification of the acquisition and site preparation cost. The applicable administrative regulation 702 KR 4:050 Section 5 limits acquisition and site preparation costs to 10% or less of the proposed project. That $2.1 million identified in that contract compared to the $32 million project cost identified in the BG1, you're sitting at 6.6%. That doesn't include the cost of water infrastructure. That doesn't include the cost of those other acquisition and site preparation costs. Through a June 18, 2018 letter from the Kentucky Department of Education, in pertinent part, when the purchase of real property requires the extension of infrastructure, the KDE requires documentation from the school district as to how the proration of the cost will be accomplished with any adjacent property owners or other parties that benefit at the time of the board's purchase. The documentation in this proposal fails to explain the proration of cost and fails to explain why this proration is fair to JCPS. Accordingly, this board should require JCPS staff to produce the information that is necessary for the board and the public to understand how the project meets state requirements. Additional comments in the list of the information that staff should provide is in the letter that we have provided. And of particular note, JCPS should identify the capacity of water and sewer service facilities necessary for this site, your site, and the sizing of the proposed capacity and water sewer facilities that will be built pursuant to the contract. Thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our next speaker is Leslie Lovelace. Leslie, welcome and thank you for being here.
My name is Leslie Lovelace. I live at 15501 Floydsview Place, which is about a quarter of a mile up the road from this proposed site. I'm a short timer there, only about 25 years in the Eastwood area. I have a little over 5 acres that my husband and I built on. We love it out there. I'm a member of the Parklands, have been ever since they built out there. I don't understand, board, how you could consider paying $50,000 an acre from a developer who paid $7,865.17 for that acreage. How does that even make sense? It doesn't to me. I don't know how you can justify it. And where is the money coming from? You want another tax hike on the ballot this coming November. I'm a homeowner. I can no longer afford your increases. I am going to be taxed out of my home if this keeps up. I planned on retiring when I'm 65. I don't know how I'm going to pay $15,000, $18,000, $20,000 a year in property taxes because you all won't quit spending. Everybody deserves a great school. Everybody deserves great education. But come on. Let's look at the facts here. The developers and you, there's a link there and I don't understand it. You bring in the infrastructure on our back, on our taxpayer money, and then the developer hooks up. There you go. Who's benefiting? The developer. And it shouldn't even be developed. You shouldn't even be looking at property in a DRO or the Floyd's Fork overlay. And my husband, less than a month ago, totaled our Equinox on Gillen Road, right at 446 Gillen Road. The car barely went off the road and hit a solid stone mailbox, flipped the the Equinox he was in. Thank God he was not hurt. And there was nobody coming either. It was his fault. But that is how narrow that road is there. And you expect buses and then the construction out there with those 3 triaxle 40 million pound gravel haulers passing back and forth. I go around those curves out there every day. And there is a semi or a big triaxle dump truck coming around that curve that's on my side. Now, how is a school bus going to avoid that? And you could go up and down that road and you would find out yourself. But the cost of this property, much less the infrastructure and everything else you need to bring in, how do you justify it? How do you justify that cost from what they paid to what you're paying? That's my question. Thank you, board.
Thank you for being here this evening. Our last speaker to talk about the agenda item is Harold Hurst. Mr. Hurst, welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Harold Hurst. I reside at 16200 Taylorsville Road in Fisherville, and I also chair the Fisherville Area Neighborhood Association. Most of the points that I wish to make today have been made already in some degree, but I'd like to reiterate and perhaps to sum them up. And they really deal with 3 specific categories. Number 1 would be the safety that's related to the traffic issues. Number 2 would be the environment and damage to the environment of Floyd's Fork. And then 3 relates to what I think is an excessive cost and the issue of apportionment of benefit and cost between the school district and the developers that are there. We've heard about the roads and the intersections. Certainly these include Echo Trail, the Eastwood Cutoff, South English Station, and Taylorsville Road. On one end, we have the dangerous intersection at Shelbyville Road. We've had at the other, we have a train and barely room for a car, much less a bus, to meet the stop sign between the railway and Taylorsville Road. The traffic studies that I've seen indicate that with the school, we'll end up with a 10-fold increase in traffic, and with the adjacent subdivision that will come into play with this development, it would be somewhat of a 50-fold increase in traffic in that area that is already congested. So this is a real safety hazard, and I put you on notice tonight to understand that. We've heard about the issue of the environmental damage to Floyd's Fork, and I really cannot understand how you would put forth a school supposedly as an environmental magnet school that is plopped down in the middle of a very sensitive area such as this. It certainly can be at a separate site, and I would urge you to look at a site that's close but perhaps not in the middle of the Floyd's Fork DRO. And then the third item is this excessive cost. We've heard about that. Certainly 2 acres to make a 3+ fold profit on this land, I think, is excessive. The water and sewer infrastructure will benefit these developers that have already approved, pending sewers, a 560 lot subdivision that would be immediately adjacent to it. They would benefit from that, and certainly the apportionment of cost of that for sewer as well as the water needs to be determined and explained to the public. So I thank you for your time to consider these issues. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak, and I would urge that you consider another site for this school based on the issues of safety, the damage to the environment, and the excessive cost and questionable apportionment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hurst, for being here this evening. We have 2 more speakers this evening. The first is Jamie Bridwell, who wants to talk about summer camp. Jamie Bridwell. Jamie Bridwell. The next speaker is Eduardo Massilia, and he wants to talk to us about ESL services for JCPS. Mr. Eduardo, welcome.
Thank you, Chair Reporter. Just in case, my name is Edgardo Mancilia. I'm the Executive Director of the Americana Community Center in the south end of the city. I want to call your attention at the need for review, increase, deal with the budget and the ESL or ELL now population. According, in each packet is the synthesis of what I'm saying, and normally when I tense, my accent is worse, so this is what I put this in here. More or less, the ESL population in Jefferson County Public School is about 9% of the whole population. We are dealing with not just the stress that are coming from the adaptation, incorporation, integration into society. You know that in the last 4 or 5 years, we have a lot of outside attacks as immigrants. We are dealing with a bill in Frankfurt, SB1, that is also another way that we make pressure on us. The kids who are with English limitations, who are learning English, have some challenge that perhaps needs to be reviewed. One is when they get the provincial level, when they get the level, they are sent to the main street classes. We don't follow up without the turn, the content that they have before. And this is a recipe for failure. Our kids are not taking advanced classes. They are not able to pass the test to take the advanced classes in middle and high school. So my question is how we can prepare the kids so they are ready to pass the test. And I appreciate all the effort with the backpack for success, but it's not enough for them to get advanced classes. So they cannot take college classes, and they are getting behind and behind. The other issue is how we engage the parents. Last year was a cut of 6 sites on adult education for ESL. We were able, thank you, Chair, to recoup 3 of the 6. How we can have a talk about 2 generations education where the parents don't understand English, don't know the system. Most of the kids coming to the center, we have around 380 plus kids, don't have computer, don't have access to internet. How we are dealing with the parents with less hours to be the first teacher of the child. So let's engage the parents, and this has to be a big package. We cannot just deal with the kids. So I need your help. We need your help. The 9% of the kids need your help. We need summer programs coming. We have now the big thing, and thank you for the 3 minutes of glory in this place.
Thank you, Mr. Eduardo, for being here this evening. That completes our speakers for the evening, and we're going to move on to the agenda with our action item. There were many comments that were made this evening, and I'm sure that we will make note of every comment, and Dr. Polio will get back to the board with any comments that are responses to some of the questions that were presented to the board this evening. The action item has to do with the to approve the project, the BG1 form for the purchase of the land at 2605 Echo Trail. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Polio, who will turn it over to staff for more information.
Thank you,
Dr.
Chair.
Polio.
Thank you, Chair Porter and board members, and we do appreciate the speakers and the comments, as we also had a community meeting at Eastern High School back in January, and we had several board members at that one as well to hear many of the comments at that time as well. So I will turn it over to Dr. Beatty, who will introduce the team that will be presenting the project and the timeline on this. Dr. Beatty.
Good evening, Chair Porter, Dr. Polio, and members of the board. This evening, we'd like to provide you with information regarding the purchase of land and the construction of a middle school at 2605 Echo Trail. With me this evening is Susan Biazioli, the Director of Facilities Planning, Vince Vetter and Colin Drake with JRA Architects, and David Mendel with Mendel Scott. The project before you this evening has two parts. First, the approval to construct a school, and the second, to purchase land for the construction of a school. The BG1 for the new school is $32 million, and the contract to purchase the property on Echo Trail is $2,103,500. The school has the proposed school has a projected enrollment of approximately 1,000. Its projected school opening will be in the fall of 2022, and the construction of this middle school was included in the district's long-range building plan that was approved in June of 2017 and amended in 2018 and 2019. This is a rendering of what was of the site that was shared with you on February 25th regarding the school site on the property. The site consists of 40 acres of land at 2605 Echo Trail. The purchase price includes the cost for constructing sewers. The site is of adequate size for a middle school and possibly an additional school if the need arises in the future. Echo Trail is of adequate width to support bus traffic, and JCPS is working with Louisville Metro Public Works and state representatives to encourage road and intersection improvements. As some questions regarding the location of the site and environmental implications have surfaced, we feel it's important to discuss the environmental considerations that have been taking place in planning of the project. With regard to stormwater, the plan will adhere to all of MSD's stormwater and erosion control requirements by detaining all stormwater runoff in a detention basin on the property that will be designed to handle 2, 10, 25, and 100-year storm events. We will contain all construction sediment on the site using MSD's erosion control requirements while using a combination of basins, skimmers, fences, ditch checks, and clean water berms. These devices will prevent sediment-laden water from reaching streams or leaving the site. With regard to the floodplain, the project does not propose any development or structures in the floodplain of Long Run Creek, and any potential for downstream impacts will be handled by the proposed stormwater detention basin. MSD is responsible for reviewing the site on behalf of the Kentucky Division of Water to make sure this and any development in Jefferson County does not propose any negative impacts to the floodplain or any violations of the local floodplain ordinance. With regard to water quality, this development, as all developments over 1 acre in Jefferson County, need to treat the first flush of stormwater runoff from surfaces which contain oils or metals through a water filtration device either biological, vegetative, or mechanical. This project will meet or exceed MSD's water quality requirements, and we will most likely use a device called a storm stepper filter system to filter storm water before it leaves the parking lots. This device allows for easy, routine maintenance. With regard to vegetation, the building footprints and parking lots were specifically designed and placed in the open and level agricultural areas of the property to minimize the removal of woody plants and trees. While there will be the need for some tree removal, this project will cause only a slight impact on the existing tree canopy. This project has several streams and one wetland area which lay mostly in the wooded portions of the site. We will need to cross some of these areas to gain access to the project site. We are considering a submission to the Army Corps of Engineers for a nationwide permit, even though the proposed impacts won't meet their lowest threshold for mitigation. The project has several features used in other JCPS projects to conserve energy. First, the school will have a geothermal HVAC system and will include an outdoor air unit with energy recovery features. In addition, classrooms will have demand control ventilation and be equipped with LED lighting. Building construction will include insulated concrete forms on exterior walls that makes the building easier to heat and cool. And I think we discussed this at length at the last work session. And finally, the east-west classroom orientation of the building maximizes energy efficiency. Overall, the middle school's design team has taken every step possible, especially at these early stages of planning, to make sure this project is set up to reduce or mitigate any impacts on our local environment. While we have been in communication with an environmental consultant during the planning phases, and we will continue to use these professionals during the planning and construction phases of the project. With regard to our next steps, the Kentucky Department of Education requires a BG1 to be submitted prior to proceeding with the next phase of design for this project. A BG1 for construction and contract for land purchases are submitted for approval this evening. The property closing is projected to take place within 60 days of this approval. We will continue to develop and design the school and submit to KDE for reviews. We will submit the plan to Louisville Metro Planning and Zoning for a community facility review. And pending all reviews and approvals, the construction would be projected to take place in the fall of 2020. That is the information that we have with regard to this. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And Susan, if you would, I would like you to address the process because that came up, and it's the same process we use in every school, but specifically the process of approval with KDE, please.
The property purchase process. Specifically, when we select a site with KDE, has to do a preliminary approval. We invite them to Jefferson County to look at the property. They walk the property with us, and we give them some preliminary information about it. Often we'll send them a layout, a projected layout, although that's all early in the process. They send us an approval for that, a preliminary approval for that property purchase, and then we move on to the actual items that have to be put together for the property purchase. There's quite a list of items that they require for property purchase. A registered plat, a letter from a professional engineer for a letter of site costs, a letter from the local government talking about traffic impacts, a letter from a geotechnical survey of the property with soil borings, let's see, a survey of development costs, assessed value, and a title from an attorney, a letter from attorney indicating fee simple title may be obtained. Those are all items that have to be submitted along with the contract for purchase for a final approval. We have not received any final approval from KDE because all of those, plus this contract you're voting on tonight, have to be submitted to them. So they have a few of the pieces, but they do not have the whole package yet.
And so if approved, that second process will be coming after this approval from KDE?
Correct.
Okay. Secondly, if you could, sorry to put you on the spot, talk a little bit about some of the necessities of site selection that makes it so difficult looking for specific land that fits our needs. If you could talk a little bit about those needs, please.
Looking for property is a struggle for JCPS. Part of the reason is the size of the property. We're looking, in this case, for 40 acres, and finding a piece of property that is 40 acres with sewers, with adequate water, is difficult. We looked at available properties in the area that our growth is projected, and we looked at about 9 pieces of property. The issues varied from EPA registered dump site, absolutely no sewers anywhere near the site and no possibility of getting there, 1-lane bridges, electrical lines running through the middle of the property. Were issues with pretty much every piece of property the size that we were looking for. This piece of property did not have those issues and had a way to get sewers to it.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. And at this time, we'll take any questions or comments that you have.
I would like to remind the board that we've had an opportunity to discuss this on more than one occasion, so I would like for us to not go back and revisit every question that we've asked, but there might be some additional questions tonight that need to be answered. So at this time, are there questions or comments from the boards before we call for a vote? Questions or comments from the board? Dr. Chris?
Yeah, I just, it sounded like there were many pieces of it which were as part of the presentation you gave Dr. Beatty and in your statement. But could you just sum up quickly why we're not overpaying for this property?
We do have an appraisal that meets the price that we're paying for this property. It was appraised as if sewers were on the site, which is what we ultimately are getting in the end. Kentucky Department of Education does not allow us to pay more than the appraised cost of a piece of property.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Ms. Duncan?
I just had a question about the roads and how we can be assured that the roads will be taken care of and will be safe for the travel of the buses to and from school there.
Well, I'll start. I mean, despite some of the, emails that I got, I have visited the site. I have walked the site. I've parked my car. I've walked the entire site. I've been out there multiple times. So I have done that. But, there is no doubt, I agree with the councilman that, and we are pushing hard for it, that road improvement is needed. However, it does meet the requirements of the Kentucky Department of Education. But there is, we will continue to say that intersection definitely that runs into Shelbyville Road needs work. And that will be significant work that we will do and push for those improvements. And I believe that we will have them.
Board Member Craig?
I'll be brief if I can get this on. Is that on? Yeah, it is. Okay. I just want a few quick comments in response to some of the things we heard tonight and about this property in particular. First, Metro Councilman Anthony Piangentini has been a big supporter of us, and I appreciate him coming tonight to speak in support of the development of this project. There are 2 legislators out in this neighborhood, Representatives Jerry Miller and Jason Nemus. I've spoken with both of them about this property acquisition, and both are very much in favor of it. Mr. Brady will speak in a moment, but I am also very much in favor of it. So what the board has tonight is the support of, I think, every elected official in this area in support of this property purchase and all the constituents that we represent. I'm a big runner, and I have run every mile of the parklands, every trail, every path. I appreciate it. I think it's beautiful. I think this land is going to be developed based on who owns it today. There's nothing that anybody in this room can do to prevent its ultimate development. And because it will ultimately be developed, I think we're doing an incredible service to the constituents that Mr. Brady and I represent by ensuring that a public school goes on it. So I'm really excited about the plans that we have. I'm excited about the project finally going forward. I can't tell you how much our constituents favor the development of this project in this location. Everything that we've heard is in support. And I appreciate the board taking it under consideration and supporting it tonight. Thank you.
So I would like to also add that, you know, as you said, when we look at the developments that are occurring, as with many things that we are tackling now, our infrastructure for schools will not be sustainable in the area in 5 to 10 years. With the prospect of 2,500 residences coming in that general area in the next 10 years. And after they are built, it may well be too late. But there is no doubt with our middle schools in the area, we are at capacity, or I should say over capacity at this point. So I think it's an important time to take action.
Mr. Brady.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand the concerns that have been brought up, and some of them are, very legitimate. I've been on Floyd's Fork. I've been part of the cleanup of that area several times, participated in that event, which is a fantastic event, and I highly encourage you to take part in that. And the positive thing about that is that over the years that I've participated in that event, we seem to be pulling out less and less trash from the creek, which means we're making progress. Now, that's not to say it's perfect. There's still obviously issues there. And it is an endangered wetland, and I understand that. But I also know that that area is growing. And we're going to have developments that are going to come in there no matter what. We, as a board and as a school district, need to get into a point where we're being proactive and basically addressing some of our needs for middle schools as they are right now. Dr. Polio is correct. Our middle schools out in that area are over capacity. We need more. It's not just that area, actually district-wide we need more middle schools. And not only are we looking at building this middle school, we're also looking at building a middle school on the other end of town, which is also very much needed. We need to do more, and we need to get from being reactive to proactive in this process. This is one way of being able to do that. I understand the concern about roads out there, but they do meet guidelines. It isn't like we don't have buses that go there now already. We do transport students on that road. We do have students that go over the railroad tracks on a bus, that go past the truck depot on a bus. Will this be increased? Yes, it will. But I also know that we also have buses that are making that weird intersection over there in Eastwood. I'm hopeful that maybe this will provide even more pressure to get that intersection taken care of by both the state and the city. And I think we'll be able to do that. I just really want to understand also the aspect that there was a comment made about there are no TARC lines that move out that go into that site. Not a problem because we have buses. We transport our students to school. We don't rely on them to have TARC. Also the idea that there was a question at a elected representatives meeting this past weekend at J-Town Library that was talking about affordable housing in the area. Right now, that area is zoned for, if you want to build a house, you have to have 5 acres. That does not do anything for affordable housing. If you're going to get sewer lines out there, then you can have more dense housing. And that's how we get affordable housing in that area. To do otherwise is to maintain the status quo that we have, where we have a segregated housing pattern within Jefferson County, and we will not get more affordable housing out there. Those are some of the reasons why I'm for this. I do understand, and I consider the folks that are against this, and I understand your viewpoint, and I consider you friends, and I participated in the events before, but in this particular case, we need to get to a point where we're providing the capacity for the growth that's going to hit JCPS, and we need to be able to provide a fantastic brand new school that we've taken a lot of consideration and care for to be able to make sure that we have as small a footprint on this property as possible, and trying to take as many precautions and as many steps to limit the impact of the tree canopy and the environmental area around there. I can't think of a better place to be able to have kids learn than right next to a park. So yeah, I can understand your viewpoint of saying that seems ironic that we're putting this in here because of the DRO, but I don't think we're opening Pandora's box by having a school here. That's a different type of thing than a really high intensity development that will be coming in on the other side of that property no matter what. And I think this is one way for us to get ahead of the problem and build capacity before we're suddenly trying to find a school or property for a school that we don't have the ability to build anymore. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I just want to go back to some information that we received from Dr. Polio over the weekend about the site selection, and I understand the concern about the cost that has been raised. So I think that that's something that it is what it is, but the board has to be aware of the cost and why it's there. But in the email that we got from the superintendent, he said that this process has been going on for a year and a half to find the property that would be appropriate for the building of this middle school. And it talks about the support systems that are in place, the things that we have to do, folks that have been talked to, and as we have said previously, as with any land purchase, we get multiple property valuations and can't go above that price without the approval of KDE. So as we send things to KDE, if there is a problem, then they would send it back to us. Is that correct? Is that what you said, Susan?
Yes, that's true. We could not pay more than we can prove an appraisal values the property at. They would not allow it.
Okay, I understand. I support the fact that the district needs new facilities. I think it's incumbent upon the board to pay attention to how much we're paying for facilities that are being built, because depending on the area of town, the price, the property of land is going to be a whole lot different based on what has to be done. So that's not the issue tonight, but I think if we are supposed to be keepers of the dollars, as many people have discussed tonight, that we must pay attention to how our dollars are being spent. The bottom line is we have said that we need new facilities in JCPS. We also are saying that we have not yet received a student assignment plan, so we still need a middle school in JCPS as we do 3 elementary schools in JCPS. So I just want to reiterate some of the things that was in the email that came from the superintendent. And if there are no other comments or questions.
Can I say one other thing? Thank you. And to that point, we will be going through this process probably 2 more times shortly. So we are finalizing right now the work on the new elementary school that will be on West Broadway with the Y. So this will not be the only time we do this in the coming weeks. It will be coming soon. And I've also told you in regards to middle schools, with a new student assignment plan that will most likely be coming to you in June, that will also require a middle school in West Louisville. So we are currently going through the process of exploring potential for that as well. But it just speaks to the need, the massive need of infrastructure for us in this district and what we need to do. Because as Board Member Brady said, not only are East End middle schools at capacity, it's nearly every middle school in this community, along with 28 of our schools that are at the end of life. And as I studied a little bit about history and some of the things in our district, I want to say this. From 1955 to 1975, this district, which was 2 districts at the time, built 48 schools in a 20-year period. From 2000 to 2020, this district has built 4 schools. So 4 schools versus 48 in the same period of time. And nearly, if you look at the timeline, 3/4 approximately of our schools were built between 1900 and 1975. This is the first step of many steps that we have to take to modernize our infrastructure. Because I do believe this, I've said this many times, we are getting to a place in years, not too far off, where we will be closing buildings and closing floors like we did in Shawnee in 1981, and we'll be fixing that in a few weeks. But this is only step 1 if we plan to modernize our infrastructure and do better for our kids.
Thank you, Dr. Polio. We know that we have an issue to be resolved, that we never want to repeat what has happened at the Academy of Shawnee. for the life of our buildings. We are in a bad position, so at this time, is there a motion to approve the project, the BG1 form for an estimated cost of $32 million and the purchase of land at 2605 Echo Trail for the new middle school? Is there a motion? Board Member Brady, seconded by Board Member Craig. All those in favor? It's unanimous. The board has moved this forward. Thank you for the information tonight. We will be ready to receive more information. We're all excited about the schools that are going to be built. Before I call for the adjournment of the meeting, I would like to remind our board and those that are here this evening that our next meeting will be held on Monday, March the 23rd. Our next meeting will be on Monday, March the 23rd. That will be a business meeting at Van Hoos Education Center. At this time, at 8:34 p.m., is there a motion to adjourn? Board Member Marshall, seconded by Board Member Craig. All those in favor? We are adjourned at 8:34. Thank you very much, and thank you, Lincoln Performing Arts Schools, for having us here tonight. It's been great. Thank you very much.